Welcome to Pattern and Craft. I'm Courtney, and in today's video I'm going to be showing you how to make a really easy crochet cord. This can be used on knitted or crocheted items to add a tie, so for bags, accessories, garments, etc. This cord is going on a pattern I'm designing that is a hair scarf sort of kerchief. I'll include the link to the pattern in the video description once that is released. In the meantime, I wanted to create this tutorial, so if you are making that pattern, you can see what the directions mean, or if you just want to have a tie on any item you've created and you want a good sturdy option that is not too bulky but not too dainty either and has minimal ends to weave in. So my scarf got a crochet edge added, and you know how when you're crocheting you always have that loop on the hook. For a situation like this, you're going to just take that loop and pull it out, and I'm going to do a 20-inch loop, and then I can show you how long of a tie that creates, and then you can create a tie of any length just doing some simple math. But there also might be a situation where you don't have the yarn coming out of your item yet, you just have a finished piece and you want to add a tie. So I'm going to show you how to do that as well. Okay, so I have a fresh ball of yarn over here, and we're going to just take our yarn and leave a tail long enough to weave in, create that loop, and then decide where it is you want to attach your tie and insert your hook there. I'm going to insert here. It's right at the corner. It's a really good sturdy spot. There we go. And then you're going to just pull up a loop through your crochet or knitted item. And you're going to want to hold on to the shorter tail, the tail you're weaving in, and then extend this loop. I'm going to do 20 inches, and then you're going to pretty much work this loop all the way till it disappears and get a tie from it. So I'm going to measure really quickly and make sure this loop is 20 inches. I'll be right back. Okay, now I have my long loop that is double-stranded because it's a loop at the end. And then I have a single strand that comes from the work to the ball of yarn. That's my working yarn. And then on the back, we just have a shorter tail that will get woven in. And I'm just going to kind of hold everything right here to secure it, because if you pull on this loop will get smaller. If you pull on the tail, it'll adjust things. So just make sure everything's kind of fixed with your fingers before you get started. And then we're going to insert our crochet hook between the single strand with that towards the back of the hook and the double strand or loop in front of the crochet hook, just like that. And we're going to pull that double loop down and over the crochet hook. And then we're going to pull the single strand forward and over the crochet hook. And we're going to pull that loop through. And that just secures everything. And maybe take a moment to pull all of your ends to just tighten that up. That's the attachment point. And I should probably show you that I'm tensioning this working yarn. I like to use my pinky and fingers to kind of tension that yarn. And then I'm just sort of holding the double strand or the loop here with my thumb and forefinger, but you can do it however makes sense for you. But you do want this single strand more towards the back and the loop that looks like a double strand of yarn towards the front. Now to create our cord, our steps are to bring this double strand up and over the crochet hook from bottom to top, front to back, and then take the single strand over top to bottom, back to front, and then pull that single strand through the double strand we looped over it and the loop on the hook. And we're going to just repeat that over and over. So double strand up over, single strand comes forward and over, pull it through all loops on the hook. Double, single, pull, double, single, pull, double, single, pull. So we're just creating this chain here, and it's being created by the double strand coming over and creating a loop. We already have the loop on our hook. We create a third loop, or I guess it's a fourth one since this is double, with the single strand, and we pull that first loop through all the other loops. Oops. So don't do what I did. I just tried to yarn over with the single strand before I had made a loop with the double strand. So you want to make that loop first, then yarn over, then pull through. And we're going to just keep going until this double strand, which is a loop of yarn, runs out. And I'll create a little table showing about how long to make that loop and how long your tie will end up. You could just go till you're happy with the length of your tie, but then you would have 3 ends to weave in. And I prefer to have as few ends to weave in as possible. So I like measuring my loop so that it will run out of yarn when my tie is the length that I want it to be. All right, so I'm going to keep going, and then I'll show you how to finish it because I have quite a little bit more to crochet, and then I'll meet you back when the loop is almost done. So I'm getting close to the end. I did want to go over the mechanics of this again. So if you kind of drop your yarn and get confused, you remember to always pick up that single strand first, then grab the loop in your thumb and forefinger and make sure that the single strand's toward the back and the double strand's toward the front, or the loop is toward the front, and then your loop on the hook is to the right. And you always work with the double strand first, then the single strand, then pull through. So things can get a little tricky once this loop is really short. They can get really hard to hold on to everything. So I'm going to actually take some scrap yarn. Maybe I'll use a different color and loop it through this loop to help me work the last couple of stitches. So I'm going to just bring some yarn through here. And that'll help me hold on to this loop a little better. All right, let me reset my configuration here. So I have my single strand, my double strand, and my working loop. So I bring that double loop over, I wrap the single, I pull through both. And now this loop is small enough that we can just insert our hook directly into that loop. Get rid of this waste yarn, we don't need it anymore. So now I have the last of that double strand loop. I have the working loop. I'm just going to pull that through, and I can't pull this loop out because this is the end of that tail. So I need to yarn over and pull through this working yarn to finish that off. Now I can cut my yarn, leave in enough of a tail to weave in, and pull that loop through. Pull that yarn through that last loop and sort of tighten it down. And that is the end of your tie. We're going to weave this end into the tie itself, and then we can weave in this end from the beginning, maybe through the tie here to attach it a little better, and then into our work. And that 20-inch loop gave us a 7-inch tie. So I'll do some math and put a table here so you can see some different options for tie length versus loop length. And you can use that technique to create a nice flexible tie. It's sturdy, but it's not stiff. It doesn't curl or twist. And here's what it looks like up close. And I find that's a really nice tie to use for things like this. I'm going to weave in all my ends, and then I'm going to do my other tie on the other side. So remember my other tie, that is just a loop coming out of my crochet and then my working yarn here. I feel like this attachment point is a little bit not sturdy enough, so I'm going to show you a little trick. I'm going to insert my hook back into my crochet work here, and I'm going to pull up a loop of that single strand. I'm going to chain one and then go back into the work, pull up another loop and pull through two, and that creates a single crochet there. And now I can go grab my long loop here. Use this as my loop, use this as my working yarn, and grab my double strand long loop. And now I can start making that chain, and I just have a little bit more of an attachment point now because I made that extra single crochet with the single strand before I started. And I think that's a good idea. Let's take a look. Yeah, that definitely looks more strongly attached to the work. So you could do that. You could always make an extra single crochet with your long yarn before you start creating your tie. Okay, I've worked my second tie, and again, that's about 7 inches long, so that is pretty reliable. I mean, yarn stretches, but I feel like both ties are about the same length because I started with that same size loop. So here's both ties. I guess they do twist a little bit and they aren't quite exactly the same length. But if you're really careful about measuring the length of your starting loop, and if you're really good about using the same tension, I think you could be pretty spot on with getting your ties to be exact. And of course, if you're just making this tie not attached to anything, that's even simpler. I can show you how to do that. And I think I would just create a slip knot first. And then make sure your loop is however long you want it. Grab your working yarn here, tension it behind, grab your double loop, bring it over, bring the single yarn over. This first stitch, oops, is going to be a little tricky. Just make sure you pull through everything. There we go. And now we can just continue on with our pattern. We bring the double over, the single forward, pull through all, double, single, pull through all, double, single, pull through all, and you can just create a cord all on its own, like that. And to weave in, all we really need to do is add this yarn onto a darning needle, yarn needle, any needle that has a large enough eye to accommodate your yarn. And I prefer a blunt tip, but some people prefer a sharp tip. And then we can decide where we want to weave this in. I like to weave it in along this chain side here into these little loops. So I will just insert my needle there and sort of wrap around each of these little loops in the same direction. And I just loop my needle through all of those in a twisting motion. So I'm kind of always going through in the same direction, like that. And then pull through like that. And that just hides our little end there within the tie. And then I can just snip that off right there. And you can't really even see it. So that's the tail woven in. Okay, I've got my tails all woven in, and here is the final result. I've got my ties all connected nicely to my work, and I can use that to tie this cute little kerchief. I hope you enjoyed learning how to make this beautiful crochet cord, and I hope you use it on some of your projects. Again, if you would like the link to the pattern for this kerchief, it will be listed in the video description once it's available, which should be pretty soon. If you're watching this video now, if you're watching this video in the future, it's most likely already released in there for you. So let me know if you would like any more tutorials on any of the techniques used in the rest of this kerchief. If you'd like the crochet edging here or here, I use two different patterns. I also have all of these different knit stitches that I use to create the texture. So let me know what you're interested in, but for now we have finished the tie tutorial, and I hope you end up using this beautiful crochet cord on some of your projects, whether it is this one or others. So don't forget to check the video description for that pattern link. Also, there's links to my shops for my other patterns. I have both crochet and knitting patterns in Etsy and Ravelry, as well as links to my social media like Instagram. Leave a comment if you have any questions. Like and share, please, to help my channel, and I'll see you next time. Happy crafting!